My love, it is your blood that shall keep me beautiful. What do you think of that?
Ever wondered what would happen if Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing returned for a sequel? Could we see him face even more terrifying creatures than Dracula? What's next for Van Helsing after that epic battle and the tragic loss of Anna? Is it possible for our hero to find redemption, or will his past sins come back to haunt him? Today we're diving into some of the details that have surfaced about the Van Helsing sequel, and trust me, it could be way more than just monster hunting. Let's explore where the story could go next, so grab your silver stakes and let's talk about it. If Hugh Jackman's Van Helsing were to return for a sequel, the story could pick up right where the first film left off, exploring the aftermath of Dracula's defeat and Anna's death. Van Helsing, now freed from Dracula's curse but deeply scarred by the loss of Anna, could find himself struggling with his own humanity, torn between his mission as a monster hunter and his newfound desire for redemption and peace. His past sins, along with the trauma of losing someone he loved, would continue to haunt him, potentially making him a more complex and introspective character. A possible plotline could involve Van Helsing being called back into action after a new, even more dangerous monster emerges, threatening not only Transylvania but the entire world. This could be another ancient creature from the depths of horror lore like the Mummy, a new breed of werewolf, or a vampire army even more powerful than Dracula's. Van Helsing's growing internal conflict, being the man who has killed so many creatures of the night, could add depth to his character arc as he tries to balance his duty to protect humanity and his quest for personal redemption. To make the story more compelling, there could be a mysterious connection between Van Helsing and these new creatures, possibly involving a supernatural legacy that ties into his forgotten past and the dark history of the Holy Order. This could allow for some exciting twists, such as Van Helsing discovering more about his true origins. Perhaps he wasn't just a random monster hunter chosen by the Order, but was part of a larger prophecy or ancient curse himself. There could also be a return of familiar faces such as Carl, who might have become more experienced, a resourceful ally since the first film, or even Frankenstein's monster, who could come back to aid Van Helsing in his latest battle. Additionally, the sequel could bring in a new dynamic character, perhaps a descendant of Anna's family, eager to finish what Anna started and bring down the last remnants of Dracula's legacy. As for the ultimate villain, it might be interesting if the story introduced a new, more sophisticated antagonist, someone who not only poses a physical threat but also challenges Van Helsing's sense of morality and purpose. Imagine a character who seeks to manipulate Van Helsing into a new dark path, forcing him to confront the true cost of his monster hunting career. The plot could revolve around Van Helsing's journey of self-discovery and redemption, where he must confront his past and fight not just physical monsters but the demons within himself. The stakes could be higher than ever as he faces monsters even more terrifying than those he's encountered before, and in the process, learn what it truly means to be a hero. Universal Pictures was so confident that Van Helsing would be a box office hit that they began working on a sequel before the first movie even hit theaters. They even kept the original Transylvania set, expecting they'd be needed for the follow-up and other projects. However, despite the film performing decently at the box office, the sequel plans were ultimately scrapped. In May 2012, Universal Pictures announced plans for a Van Helsing reboot, with Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci producing a modern reimagining and Tom Cruise set to star as the titular character while also producing. By October of that year, Rupert Sanders was in early talks to direct. However, by November 2015, John Spaihts and Eric Heiserer joined the project as co-screenwriters, although Cruise eventually left. The following year, Cruise was cast in Kurtzman's The Mummy 2017, which marked the beginning of Universal's failed attempt to relaunch its classic Monsters universe. After the critical and financial disappointment of The Mummy, Universal decided to shift focus and make the rebooted monster films standalone projects rather than part of an interconnected universe. Fast forward to December 2020 and the Van Helsing reboot was back in development, with Julius Avery hired as director, Eric Pearson brought in to rewrite the original script, and James Wan attached as producer. This reboot was intended to be a fresh, standalone story, similar to the success of The Invisible Man in 2020. In April 2023, director Julius Avery gave an update on the reboot, confirming that the project is still in motion, despite the lack of updates in recent years. Avery mentioned that he's actively writing the script and still intends to direct, with James Wan producing. Though he didn't provide details on the delays, he expressed his excitement about the project, emphasizing that it's still moving forward. However, Van Helsing seems to have become lost in the shuffle of Universal's constantly shifting plans for its classic Monsters franchise. After the reboot's initial confirmation in December 2020, updates have been scarce. It's becoming increasingly likely that the reboot will feature a fresh cast and a new actor taking on the titular role. While no official casting announcements have been made yet, fans can likely expect to see familiar faces from the original Dracula lore, with Count Dracula a strong contender to appear as the villain. After all, Van Helsing is a vampire hunter, and Dracula is the obvious choice to be the nemesis. So here's the thing that always gets me thinking: what went wrong with 2004's Van Helsing? It could have been an awesome, badass creature feature that brought together some of the best horror characters on screen for the first time, but it just didn't live up to its potential. Financially, Van Helsing did okay, making just over $300 million worldwide on a $160 million budget. After factoring in marketing and distribution costs, it probably just barely made a profit. That's ultimately why we never got a sequel. But the box office numbers weren't the real issue. Van Helsing had bigger problems when it came to quality. It currently holds a sad 24% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is considered rotten. When it came out, critics said the movie didn't deliver on its big, epic premise. A lot of the complaints were about the heavy reliance on CGI, the messy plot, and how seriously it took itself. Plus, it didn't really have the scares it should have. Van Helsing had the potential to be this crazy, wild monster movie, but it totally missed the mark. As movie buffs know, there hasn't been a truly great Dracula film in the last 20 years. The 50s and 60s were packed with iconic Dracula movies, mainly thanks to Hammer Horror and Christopher Lee. Before that, Nosferatu and Dracula with Bela Lugosi set the character up as a cinematic legend. Even Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola impressed critics and fans, but since 2000s, we've just seen a lot of misfires. Dracula Untold, starring Luke Evans, tried to give us an origin story and kickstart Universal's Dark Universe monster franchise. But it flopped at the box office and got terrible reviews. Then there was Renfield, with Nicolas Cage as Dracula, but that also bombed and got a mixed reception. And don't even get me started on The Lost Voyage of the Demeter. Of course, you can't really blame Van Helsing for the mess that followed. It's probably just a coincidence that Dracula movies have struggled since then. But it's still interesting to think that if Van Helsing had been a hit, we might have gotten a whole monster universe, and horror could have become the big blockbuster genre of the 21st century instead of superhero films. That's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Do you think Van Helsing could have been a success if it had handled the mix of horror and CGI better? Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below.